Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom, happy Monday.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I am good outside, which is great. It's not too hot yet. The sun's not baking me yet, but it's coming.
And it's not raining like another.
It's not raining, yeah. And part of the country is seeing some really bad weather.
Yes, no doubt. Yeah. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast where we try to provide that one thing, the one thing that will help you move forward along your own unique pathway to success and be the renegade that you want to be. So, Bob, as we get started, one of the things we always do is celebrate. What are we celebrating today?
We got a good one. This is a personal favorite.
Okay.
It's National Beach Day.
Beach.
And I am a big fan of beaches. Now, oddly enough, I'm not the big fan of sitting out in the sun for 8 hours baking all day, but I love to run along the beach, walk along the beach, listen to the waves hitting the beach, watch kids make the big forts and all that stuff, the castles on the beach. So this is one of my favorite days. Yeah. And I'm nowhere near a beach today, but hopefully by Wednesday, I will be at a beach.
Will we get to see like the beach in the background when you're at the beach?
I am working on that.
Do you want to tell them about your trip?
No, that's okay. We'll get that worked out. I think there's a way that I can be on the beach and have the beach in the background, but there's going to be loud noise because of the seagulls.
Now, if you had really been planful, you would have been on a beach today celebrating National Beach Day.
If only. Believe me, nothing would make me happier, Tom, on so many levels right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, folks. So we have been talking for a while. Let's get right down to our conversation. We have been talking for a while about follow-up. And that was our conversation pretty much through July and a little bit into August. And so then last week we talked about what happens when they say no. And we went through all the challenges of the results that we sometimes get as a part of the follow-up that we do. So this week, we're going to turn the tables. And this week, we're going to talk about when they say yes. And our conversation for today is around when it happens. So do you want to kick us off, Bob, with a little bit about when they say yes or when you're going to say yes to the beach?
I'm going to say yes to the beach very soon. We all work so hard to get to the yes. And then you get the yes. And I don't know about you, Tom, but when someone says yes to me and I've promised them a whole bunch of different things, I get scared. I get almost as scared when someone says yes as I get frustrated when someone says no, because there's a whole different set of concerns now. How do I make this happen? How long will it take? I promised, when they put money into the equation, now it's real. And theoretical is easy. But real means, hey, I'm accountable. And once I'm accountable, that means there's a possibility that I might mess it up. And that can often cause me some anguish. I can remember one time I got a really big contract to do a project for someone. And as the guy was signing the check, and I mentioned this in my book, The Renegade Way, which I don't have a copy of right now, but thank you. Appreciate that. In the book, I mentioned how he said to me right before he wrote a $7,000 check, the biggest check I'd ever gotten for work. He said, every dollar here is coming out of my pocket. This is my salary. So I'm trusting you'll do great things. Well, nothing could have scared me more. I almost ripped it up like, I'm afraid to take your money because you're making me feel like this is really important. The funny thing about that for me was that really crystallized for me whether the person's giving me $5, 500, 5,000, 50,000, it's all important to them. This really matters. And I think sometimes, especially when we're starting out, we aren't thinking about that part of it. But this is hard-earned money. You know, if someone says to me, Bob, I want you to coach me, I want you to do this, do that, whatever it is, that's serious money coming out of their pocket. And we have to recognize that. And that can often cause us to have some fear. And like you said before we started the program, there are as many problems once you get a yes as there are before you got a yes. You know, challenges, frustrations, worries, concerns, staffing, if you're in that situation, finding the products, finding the people that do the work. It gets complicated. And if you're running a team, when someone says yes to your proposal, hey, we should expand in this direction, that's the same thing. Oh, now I got to get the people together. I hope my budget was right. I hope we said we delivered this in 6 months, and I really don't know how we're going to do that.
Okay, fair. I mean, it's interesting that we spend, or in this case, because you're relating your story, that we spend all this time and effort trying to get a yes. And then once you get a yes, you're almost in the exact same spot you were if they had just said no.
Yeah. Except we don't think about it until we get the yes. Rarely do I ever go, boy, if this person says yes to this thing, I've got a lot of work to do. Like I've got 2 of those right now going on, where if people say yes to certain things, I've got to figure out, I've got to do some serious work to make it work. It's not impossible, but it'll be a stretch. And that stretch is good. That's how my business has grown, is by stretching in new directions. But there's some worry around that. And so it's sometimes I almost think it's like, please say yes, please, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's funny. I think that's interesting. As you were saying that, I got thinking about, it's almost exactly the same things if they say no.
It really is.
You used the phrase, it stretches our business it's still going to stretch my business in different directions. And it's fascinating to me that sometimes the reaction we get, no matter what the answer, is similar. And I think, it's funny. I think it's sometimes to be careful what you ask for. When I was working for a university, and we were planning a huge event. I mean, they were talking about having a well-known speaker on campus they were expecting 5,000 people in this small campus. And they had also decided we're going to invite all of these local school kids to be a part of this. And so we're going to bust them all up. And we were sitting around a planning table, and I was like, I don't even remember what role I was in at the time. I just remember that I was a part of this discussion because I was in the events, I guess. And the conversation was like, well, what are we going to do with parking? And there's a whole thing about parking and whatever. And I said, well, why don't we tell them where they have to park? And then figure out how we can shuttle them or whatever to get them so that there aren't all these issues with people just parking wherever they want to park on campus. And I think everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads. Again, because it's a college campus. When people come on campus, you want to make sure they have a good experience and that. And I said, well, schools do it all the time when they have, if larger schools have large athletic events, they tell people where to park. So the long story, the short is, they were like, okay, great. Why don't you be in charge of this event? And I was like, well, wait a minute. I was just offering a thought of how we could make this work. And so sometimes they say yes to you and you're like, now what did I get myself into? Which I think is a good, it's a good situation to be in. Because not only, it's funny, you talked about stretching my business in different directions. For that, it was stretching my experience and knowledge in different directions. And isn't that really how we grow?
Yeah.
Is those opportunities to do those things and expand, and how much impact that will have on what is real for us, for our organization, for our future?
Well, it leads us to discomfort, whether they say yes or no, right? And because comfort is what's going on right now. If you said to me, hey, Bob, I'd love about 10,000 people. They really want your message. Be great. Oh, that's awesome, Tom. I'd love to do it. But there'd be some trepidation. I've never spoken to 10,000 people at one time. So it's like, am I going to be a big stage? Do I have a lavalier mic? There are all those little things. I mean, we are really good as human beings at avoiding anything that causes us to have to be different. It's so much easier to get up and wear the same thing every day than to get up. If you said to me, hey, tomorrow, Bob, we're going to wear ugly sweaters. Now I got to go look, is this an ugly sweater? Does everyone think it's an ugly sweater? Do I think it's an ugly sweater? It just creates a whole new set of problems for us. And I think that's what I've come to realize about business and leading teams. Being a leader, it doesn't matter whether you're running your business or you're leading a team. Every day is a discomfort of some level. There are very few days that you're going to be comfortable all day. And part of what you get to, I think, over time, I've certainly gotten to it, is I'm going to be uncomfortable today. It's coming. It almost came for me at 7:14 when someone said to me, you have to deal with this challenge. Fortunately, it turned out it solved itself. But here we are at 8:20 East Coast time. I won't get till 9 o'clock till I'm uncomfortable. I guarantee it. It's just the nature of it. And getting comfortable with that discomfort, and with the discomfort that comes when someone says yes, because I've had people, when I've said yes to them, say to me, oh, wow, I didn't think you'd say yes. This really scares me. Whoa, time out. That's not what I want to hear. You've built this know, like, and trust, and now you're basically saying, you misplaced it, buddy. You picked the wrong horse.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about that is, I wonder if it's in how we communicate some of those thoughts and ideas rather than what the words actually are. We were talking about stretching your business. You could say it as, oh my gosh, it's going to really stretch our business. I'm not sure how we're going to handle this. What are we going to do? You could say the exact same words and use a different tone and be like, we get to stretch our business. Yeah. I'm so excited about what we get to do. You talked about speaking in front of 10,000 people. I've never spoken in front of 10,000 people. That's great. Or it could be, oh my God, I've never spoken in front of 10,000 people. I think that we create some of the challenges or opportunities based on how we look at, and really, whether it's an exclamation point or a question mark at the end of whatever statement or comment question we have, can really define whether we are looking at it as like a challenge or seeing it as a great opportunity.
I've dealt with some successful business people in my career, and they have these moments too.
Sure.
If I get this big contract, I really don't know how we're going to do it. What they know is they'll figure it out. And I think that's the thing, that ultimately, yes, no, you figure it out. If it's no, as we talked last week and a couple other weeks, we're helping you, we're trying to figure out how we can get to yeses. If it's yes, odds are it's going to stretch a little bit. And that's a good thing. Like you said, I really think all the growth in me personally and professionally has come from when I've moved into that uncomfortable zone. And yes is one of those uncomfortable areas. And I'm sure there's someone who watches this and says, or listens on the podcast and goes, oh, I just like one person to say yes. I've talked to 27 people and everyone said no. And I can tell you right now, when that first person says yes, you will get scared. There's no way around it.
Sure. There is no doubt. There will be there will be an emotion that you will have. Yeah. Some, it might be scared. Some, it might, if you think about it in a different way, it might be excitement or anticipation.
Yep.
And I think so often what our first step is will define whether we see that as a little bit afraid or a little bit excited, or a lot afraid or excited. And I feel like, one of the biggest challenges we have is, how do we set ourselves up to be better prepared for when that happens? And, we have been talking about, how do you create a routine that will help set yourself up for success, to help make that travel along your own unique pathway easier. And I think what's interesting, and we'll share more about this in the coming weeks, is that the first step in that process is one that I think if you took the same first step, once you get a result, might dramatically change how you look at whether you get a yes, no, or a maybe. And I think one of the reasons that we always start the show by celebrating, is that it puts us in a different mindset. It gets us in a mindset of thinking about things that are just, we've had success with in the past, or things that we are interested in, or that we are supporting. Now we do it.
Or that seemed impossible that we achieved.
Correct.
Because there was a point where we didn't think we could do something and we did it. And celebrating what we did that stretched us, sets in my head, it starts to get me thinking about, well, if I did that last week, I can figure out what I need to do this week, and whatever comes next week, I'll figure it out. So if I'm going to speak to 10,000 people, if only, I'll figure it out. And then if someone comes a week later and says, hey, I'd like you to speak to 50,000 people, I'm building off, I figured out the 10,000 people thing. That worked. Now let's expand on it.
Correct. You see it as you understand how you had success, or that you've had success. And so there is an opportunity to look at this as just the next chance that you have to have success. And again, I think the value is celebrating the action. And in this case, it just so happens the thing that we can't control is the result. So when we celebrate the action and then we just look at the result and we start to measure it, we start to figure out, okay, now I'm looking at it through a lens of, I have done these things in the past, which means I have the opportunity to do new things in the future. And that allows us, I believe, to continue along our pathway.
I like it. So Tom, we're at that point. This is a very, very important part of the program. We've talked through the issue. What's that one thing? Your today's antidote. Dun, 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 dun. No, we did
promote your book. That's not the one. That's not the most important thing. Is we promote. You talked about it. You talked about the podcast. We could promote the podcast. No. We'll do that in a minute.
What's that one thing? Come on, Tom. Don't
one
have
thing
a call.
My thing is when they say yes, as our topic, and the question is when it happens. I'm going to go with celebrate. Take your first moment and whatever, and again, I would say this in the same regards of when they say no, just celebrate you made the ask, or that you got a result. So my thing is, I think when you get a yes, celebrate that yes. And then think about what's down the line. Because I think what happens is we get ahead of ourselves, right? They say yes. And your immediate start of this conversation was thinking about all the things that you now have to do down the road, which are future steps. Right? Mm-hmm. When we say yes and we celebrate, we think about, and that's the first step. Okay, we've celebrated. Now what's the next step? And I think when I go back to my example of that big event, in some ways I celebrated the fact that, hey, they listened to my idea, that I had a good idea. And I'm like, okay. Then I said, now there's a whole lot to do. What's the first thing we need to do? And I think that allows you to break down some of the things that you see as a challenge or as a struggle. Be like, okay, I'm not going to worry about, 6 steps down the road. I'm going to figure out my first step. And once I celebrate, I'll be like, okay, I've celebrated. Now let's dive into what do I need to do then? And hopefully that may reduce some of the challenges that you foresee, and maybe some of the stress or concern about, oh my gosh, now I have to fulfill what I said I was going to do.
I love that, Tom. I think it's great. The one thing I would throw into it is probably not the best idea to celebrate in front of the customer, in front of your team, if your idea gets accepted or if they approve your contract. You know, that little, yes, yes, I'm awesome, I'm amazing, I'm the best. Probably better done in the car or in the bathroom area or at home that evening, not in front of your team. I find that can be detrimental. What do you think?
Maybe. I think that if it depends on if you're helping solve
Act like
someone's.
you've done it before is my thing. If I hit a really good golf shot, my thought is instead of celebrating that golf shot publicly, inside I'm celebrating. Externally, I'm like, yeah, I knew I was going to hit that ball that way.
Okay. Well, I think that the thing is there are a million ways to celebrate. And I think sometimes we think of celebrations as having to be these big fireworks and jumping up and down and doing whatever the heck that was that you were doing with your arms just a few minutes ago.
Flailing, I think is the word you're looking for.
Flailing. Yes. Yes. Our people listening on the podcast missed that experience. And so I think that to me, celebration is a recognition. And that could be that you shake the person's hand, that you're going to make a difference for them, that you acknowledge the steps that they are taking to move forward. And so I think that I don't want people to get confused that a celebration has to be this big blowout.
Right. No, I like to tell people thank you for trusting in me.
Sure.
And they react to that like, wow, I didn't really think about it, but that's really what it is. If you're exchanging your hard-earned money for my services, you're trusting me and you're entrusting me with a big part of what makes you successful. Well, I'm scaring myself just thinking about this.
Well, the other thing one of the other things to do with celebration is getting them to celebrate them.
Yeah.
Finding a solution or making a decision to find a solution to a challenge that they have, whether that's they bought a widget, whether it's they, were brave enough to share an idea or a concept or a thought within the team, or whether they purchase services that are going to make a difference in their lives, their business lives, their family lives, whatever the case might be. And so I think that celebrating doesn't only have to be us. It can be helping others celebrate as well. So that again, because for some, think about when you buy a car or a house, it's scary, right? You buy the house and you're like, yeah, we bought a house. And you're like, oh my God, I got to think about all the different things that now we have to go in and do for that house.
Yes.
And if we don't take time to just be like, we made a significant decision about something that's going to impact us. Great. Let's find a way to celebrate that. And then let's dive in and figure out what our next step is.
All right, Tom, I think we've given people a lot to chew on for today. We'll be talking about the topic of when they say yes all week. So if you're excited when someone says yes, or if you're worried when someone says yes, come back every day at 8 a.m. Eastern time, because we'll have another discussion around this. And you have a whole bunch of other stuff you'd like to say now, Tom. I know the one word I remember, though, from what you say at the end, it's a public group, right? No, wait, it's a private group.
It is a private group. Correct. One of the ways that you can continue this conversation is inside the Ring of Renegades, our private Facebook group, where you can join other renegades or people who are trying to figure out if the renegade way is right for them. And it's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for
right for them, Tom. I'm sorry.
Real for them. Sorry.
Thank you.
Real for them.
I was gonna say you're good about that.
I know.
And just real quick, the difference between right and real, because some may not know why we're being distinct there. Can you walk us through it real quick?
Certainly. It is my belief, and I think Bob has slowly bought into this, that for each of us, what's real. It's not what's right. It's just a matter of everyone has their own unique knowledge, experience, and perspective, which creates what is real for them. And what's real for them may or may not be what's real for someone else. And so we understand that that's why it's real.
And it can change.
And it will always change.
Right.
It's always being impacted by all the influences around you. So that's why Bob corrected me, I guess, or reminded me that
just wanted to be clear.
Very good. So we'd love to have you join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. All you have to do is ask, tell us why you're a renegade, and then you can be a part of that group. If you would rather listen to us on podcasts, that's easy to do as well. You can just go to your favorite podcast provider and search for Today's Antidote. And every day, or you can just listen to episode after episode after episode, you can hear the conversation that we have as we try to help people find their next step and provide that one thing that makes that easier for them to take a step and easier for them to find the renegade inside of them. So great ways.
Not just them, but you. Easier for you.
Well, I was, yeah, correct. I was going to let you say that.
Okay.
So we hope that if you have enjoyed this, maybe not the last 2 or 3 minutes, but you enjoyed this episode, that you will share it with your friends. You'll subscribe so that you get updated on when the podcast happens, and that you might leave us a review so that others who are searching for their renegade way can find it as well. And if you're really trying to figure out the renegade way, just go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com and you can purchase a copy of Bob's book. I wrote the introduction, called The Renegade Way. And there's our shameless plug for the day. So everyone, thanks so much for being a part of our show today. We look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegade in you.
Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace